Hi, I'm Min Kobayashi. A lot of people have questions, sometimes relating to me referencing that I have a speech impediment or that I have dyslexia and what that is like for me and my story around that. And I know I have never really fully explained it to the internet as a whole. I've definitely explained it to individuals. However, this is my broad statement of why reading and writing matters to me so much and where my journey began. So I didn't speak until I was age 4, which everyone likes to ridicule me and say that I never stopped speaking ever since, making up for it. However, I was completely silent, and when I did speak, I spoke in such unintelligible words that no one could comprehend me. My parents struggled too and could understand basically what I said, but not fully. And my 3 siblings often worked as translators for me to my parents and to the general public because what I sounded like was complete and utter nonsense. I may as well have not been speaking English to people because they didn't understand what I was saying. And I also couldn't learn to read. I didn't go to school, and going to school was literally my biggest terror because I was ridiculed everywhere I went because I couldn't talk. It's like kids are merciless, right? Through that, I later discovered that I had phonetic dyslexia, which is very different from the stereotypical dyslexia that is often presented, which means I don't have the ability to sound out words. So all those things, they don't make sense in my brain. I can't sound out words, which didn't help when people were trying to explain how to pronounce words because they were like, this is how you pronounce the word. And I was like, what? So my mom figured out around the age of 9, almost 10, that I could memorize words because I would listen to people and I could recite back for long periods of time what people were saying, and they were like, oh, we're gonna use this, and you used flashcards and many other things, and I eventually began to be able to read at a level that was probably grade 2 or 3. In about grade 5 or 6. I was understanding basic things, but it took a while and a lot of reading and writing. Spell check could not understand me, however, I was determined to write as much, even though it did not make a clue of sense. And at this point, I started to be able to speak well enough. I still had more than a dozen words that I said weirdly, but I was able to be fairly well understood. And to my embarrassment, I still dealt with a lot of self-consciousness and self-esteem around the fact that I was insecure about expressing myself because people ridiculed me or teased me thinking that I could normally talk and I couldn't, or repeat that and then they would sound it out and I'd be so angry. Still, that is one of my pet peeves because still, as an adult, people still sound out words to me when I mispronounce them, and I'm like, first of all, that my brain doesn't compute. Second of all, even if it did, I'm a woman, please do not treat me like a 4-year-old. As that happened, I began to devour everything I could. I wanted to have as much knowledge I could. I realized that I could substitute the words that I mispronounced to other words. For instance, I still to this day can't say the word yun. It kind of sounds like the organ in my body. It's not the organ in my body. I'm saying a youthful person. And I realized I could put an ER on it so it becomes younger. It works. I can say the G then, but I can't say the G by itself. I can't say the word this. But if I talk fastly and I say this is something, you can't tell the fact that the is sound is never on the end of this. It's just this. I can't enunciate it for some reason. I don't understand why my body still can't say it even though I've practiced a million times. But just some things like that just come out and I can hide them, and I cleverly taught myself how to speak in a way that showed that I was intelligent, because that was my biggest fear, that I wasn't smart because I couldn't say things and I got treated inferior to other people because of that. And that's where my first ability to want to prove myself came very firm, in this insecurity of knowledge and this ability of not being heard, because I literally could not express myself. When you can't write and you can't talk, you literally have no voice. I deserved to be in my own dystopian book because that was my experience. It was really until 10th grade when I really started to be able to come into my own and read and write at a level that was good. Grade 9, like, I wrote and read, like, fine enough. Like, it was less than average for my grade, but grade 10 and 11 was really when I started to write at a level that was not superior, but well done, that I began to be able to distinguish myself through writing, because I have always been a storyteller, I've always been those, but I was never actually able to write anything decent because I couldn't use the words and I didn't have the skills. Even though I had the words in my brain, I didn't have the way to be able to speak it or the way to write it. Began to use fancy words. I began to want to show that I could express myself. And that became a drive in me, because when you don't have that, you value it. And it became very apparent to me that many of us take that privilege, that we have always had a voice, that we've always had the ability to learn, that we don't learn. I dove first into that. So when people always tell me that they're impressed that I read or that I write a lot because of my dyslexia, I say, why couldn't I? How could I have had it taken away for so much of my life and not wanted to have it, to not crave it so deeply that I would make it something that I avidly do? For me, people who don't value literature and don't value their voices really confuses me, because for me, that's all I've ever wanted to have. And it is something that, even though I've been able to do it for some time, it's still a huge part of my story. I'm 21, however, as I said, I didn't feel like I was meeting the level of my age group until I was about 15. So still for 3/4 of my life, I was behind or I was voiceless. And now I'm finally able to come into my own and prove not only that I'm able to express myself, but that I have something to express. And not that I'm unique in this, because we all have something to express. And that's what I was saying. If anything I learned from my story is not that I'm some champion who overcame dyslexia and that I read so many books despite the fact that I have dyslexia, and that I want to be an author despite that I have dyslexia, and that I have a booktube despite having a speech impediment that, yes, I still have, even though I hide quite convincingly on here, is that you should use your voice. Don't ever disvalue literature or books or poetry or anything where you get reading and writing. Your voice matters. Other people's voice matters. How couldn't I desire to know what other people have to say, their unique experiences, because it sucks to have that taken from you. I'm fortunate to be in the privileged. I accept that. However, I can know some experience of how it is to not have that voice because of circumstances, but some people don't have those voices because of things they can't control, because of racism, because of discrimination against their sex or their sexuality or their race or their religion or all of these things where they don't have a say. And how couldn't you cry out to want to listen to them and to want to express yourself and to have them express themselves? That's why it matters so much to me. Anyways, I'm ranting and talking about myself, but hopefully you enjoy, and please go out and use your voice to read and write and talk on here and talk to people in your life, and I hope that you have a fantastic time.